The haunted house.
In a small, forgotten town nestled deep within a dense forest, there stood a house that no one dared to approach. The locals referred to it as the haunted home. For decades, it remained untouched, its windows shattered, its walls weathered by time, and its front door hanging by a single rusty hinge. The house had a dark history, one that kept people away. But for Anna, a curious young woman new to the town, the house was a mystery she couldn't resist. Anna had always been drawn to the unknown, to places that others feared. When she first heard about the haunted home from the villagers, she dismissed their warnings as mere superstition. Ghosts don't exist, she told herself. But deep down, something about the house intrigued her, as if it were calling her, begging her to uncover its secrets. One crisp autumn afternoon, Anna decided to explore the house. Armed with a flashlight and her trusty camera, she made her way through the overgrown path leading to the front door. The closer she got, the colder the air became. The trees seemed to lean in, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. But Anna pressed on, her curiosity overpowering her fear. As she stepped onto the creaking porch, the wind howled through the broken windows, carrying with it whispers that seemed to echo from within the walls. Ignoring the eerie feeling in her gut, Anna pushed open the door, its rusty hinges groaning in protest. Inside, the house was dark and musty, with a thick layer of dust coating every surface. The furniture, though covered in white sheets, hinted at a time when the house was full of life. Faded photographs lined the walls, their frames cracked and glass shattered. But it was the grand staircase at the center of the house that caught Anna's attention. It spiraled upwards, disappearing into the darkness above. Anna took a deep breath and began her ascent. With each step, the floorboards creaked beneath her weight, and the whispers grew louder, more distinct. She could almost make out the words, as if someone or something was trying to communicate with her. At the top of the stairs, Anna found herself in a long hallway lined with doors. Each door was slightly ajar, as if waiting for her to enter. She hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and a cold draft brushed against her skin. Choosing the first door on her left, Anna pushed it open. The room inside was small, with a single bed and a dresser against the wall. But what caught her eye was the large mirror that hung opposite the bed. It was old, with intricate carvings along the frame, but the glass was clean, almost as if it had been polished recently. Anna approached the mirror, her reflection staring back at her. But as she examined it more closely, she noticed something strange. Her reflection seemed off, as if it were moving slower than she was. She waved her hand, and the reflection followed suit, but a moment later than it should have. Then, to her horror, the reflection smiled a wicked, twisted grin that didn't belong to her. Panicking, Anna stepped back, but the door slammed shut behind her, trapping her inside. The room grew colder, and the whispers turned into voices, chanting something she couldn't understand. The mirror began to glow, and from its depths, a dark figure emerged. It was tall and thin, with hollow eyes that seemed to bore into Anna's soul. Frozen in fear, Anna watched as the figure stepped out of the mirror and into the room. It reached out a bony hand, its fingers curling around her wrist. The touch was ice cold, sending a jolt of pain through her arm. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure leaned in close, its breath cold against her ear as it whispered, "You belong to me now." With a surge of adrenaline, Anna broke free from the figure's grasp and bolted for the door. She yanked it open and fled down the hallway, the figure's laughter echoing behind her. The house seemed to come alive as she ran, the walls closing in, the floorboards splintering under her feet. Anna raced down the stairs and burst through the front door, not stopping until she was far from the house. She collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath, her heart racing. When she looked back, the house stood silent and still, as if nothing had happened. But she knew better. She had felt the darkness, the evil that lurked within those walls. From that day on, Anna was never the same. The villagers noticed the change in her how she became quiet, withdrawn, her once bright eyes now filled with fear. She never spoke of what happened in the haunted home, but she knew she had narrowly escaped with her life. Years passed, and the house remained empty, its secrets buried within its decaying walls. But every now and then, on a quiet night, the villagers would hear whispers carried by the wind, and they would shudder, knowing that the haunted home was still watching, still waiting for its next victim. After her terrifying experience in the haunted home, Anna felt grateful for escaping, but deep down, she knew the house wasn't done with her. She could sense it lurking in her dreams, like it was waiting for the right moment to pull her back into its grasp. The house had let her leave, but its dark presence still clung to her, whispering in the shadows of her mind. One night, as Anna lay awake, unable to shake the memory of that ghastly figure, she realized she couldn't just run away from this curse. The house had marked her, and she needed to confront it once and for all to be free. But how could she do that? She wasn't a ghost hunter, nor did she believe in any sort of magic that could banish spirits. Yet, she knew she had to try something before the house claimed her for good. Determined, Anna began researching everything she could find about haunted houses and the spirits that inhabit them. She spent hours poring over old books, scrolling through obscure websites, and even visiting local occult shops, asking the owners for advice on how to deal with the restless spirits. Most people thought she was crazy, but Anna didn't care. She was desperate. One day, after weeks of searching, Anna stumbled upon an old, dusty tome in a forgotten corner of a second-hand bookstore. The book was bound in cracked leather, with a title so faded she could barely make it out. The Banishing of Shadows, it read. Inside, she found rituals and spells that claimed to expel dark entities from places they had anchored themselves. It was exactly what she had been looking for. The ritual described in the book was not easy. It required rare ingredients, intense concentration, and, above all, courage. The instructions warned that the ritual was dangerous, as the spirits would fight to keep their hold on the living world. But Anna knew she had no other choice. If she didn't face this, she would never be free. On a cold, moonless night, Anna returned to the haunted home, the book clutched tightly in her hands. The house loomed before her, even more menacing than before, as if it knew what she intended to do. She pushed through the rotting door, her heart pounding in her chest, and made her way to the center of the house. She began the ritual, drawing the symbols as described in the book and placing the ingredients in a circle around her. As she chanted the ancient words, the air around her grew heavy and the temperature dropped sharply. The house seemed to come alive, groaning and creaking as if it were trying to resist her efforts. Shadows in the corners of the room twisted and writhed, taking on forms that were neither human nor animal, but something in between. Suddenly, the ghastly figure from before appeared before her, its hollow eyes burning with fury. It lunged at her, trying to break her concentration, but Anna stood firm. She continued chanting, louder and more forcefully, even as the figure shrieked in rage. The walls around her began to shake, and the floor bower.
Dear listeners of Sadat TV, this was our thrilling story for today, directed by Saad Adriz Sadat. God willing, we will be back tomorrow with a new story. Until then, I leave you in the care of Almighty Allah. Goodbye and take care.